Hello and welcome to the Prosperous Empath Podcast, designed especially for empaths and highly sensitive entrepreneurs just like you who are committed to having it all and achieving holistic success. I'm your host, Catherine Wood, Master Certified Coach, mom, author, mastermind leader, and founder of Unbounded Potential, a boutique coaching firm for empathpreneurs. I'm on a mission to bring empathy back into the world of business. Each episode will focus on achieving more by doing less and revealing how you too get to have it all in your life, your leadership, and your legacy. If you are committed to doing good and running a conscious business, but truly giving yourself permission to have it all while doing so, proving that you can have both in a society that tells you you can't and you are in the right place. Join me here every other week to find out how. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review so you won't miss an episode. Plus, you'll find all the show notes and helpful resources over at unbounded-potential.com. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. Kat here. I wanted to record today's episode about this idea of embracing change as an empathpreneur. Now, I don't know about you, but I find that it is particularly hard for empathpreneurs to embrace change, to close their businesses, to open new ones, to chart new courses in their careers, to change directions, to end business partnerships, like truly all seasons and types of change. And I actually notice so many people in my world right now are in that season of change. Just now, I was checking my email and I came upon this online entrepreneur who I used to follow many years ago. And I just realized that I hadn't received a newsletter from her for, probably well over the past year and a half. And out of the blue, I just received a newsletter from her in my inbox that she had moved back to the States and then again moved overseas to Puerto Rico. She had closed down her old business and opened an entirely new one, and she wanted to share what she was up to. And I think that makes a lot of sense because so many of us right now are in that period of change, that transition. And how do we allow ourselves to trust that transition and to embrace change? Now, I think it's hard for empathpreneurs to embrace change in particular because of how heart-centered and purpose-driven our businesses are. Because if you think back to when you started your business in the first place, if you're anything like me, you really wanted to make a difference. You wanted to help people. You saw a problem that you felt you had a unique solution for, and you likely cared deeply, and still do, about the clients or communities that you wanted to help and serve. And all of those reasons are likely still true. I heard this quote recently by young Pueblo. He said, "Empaths find it hard to embrace change because every transition feels like an emotional labyrinth where they must first find themselves before they can move forward." Oof, that lands so hard for me. I think that with many of my clients, the more emotionally invested we feel, the harder it can be to evolve past those relationships and businesses and commitments and attachments that we very naturally create. I think it's one of the gifts that we have in business is that we create such deep and intimate relationships so quickly, but we have to allow our businesses and our ideas to evolve as we do. Now, I think for that very same reason, there's also an even bigger payoff for empathpreneurs to embrace change, because as we lean into and trust those intuitive whispers and that internal guidance, we can trust that our businesses are becoming more authentic to who we are as we become more authentically self-expressed. So we can truly trust in that inherent value of whatever is pulling us forward in a new direction. So let's talk about for a moment, why is that experience of transition, the reality of transition, why is it so unsettling? So there's this duality of excitement and fear that gets created when we're embracing change. And in reality, we don't necessarily distinguish in our bodies the difference between excitement or fear. We have to learn how to embrace both. It's incredibly normal that we would feel afraid of charting a new course in our business or in our career. And we have to learn to take care of the part of ourselves that is afraid, but also allow the excitement of something new to evolve and grow and inspire us forward as we step into the unknown. In reality, empaths experience change a lot more intensely than others. So I think that makes sense that we would feel that fear, ours and other people's, more intensely. And we're also prone to overanalyzing outcomes. There's a statement I often use with clients that we experience analysis paralysis. This idea that if we just analyze all the possible outcomes, the what ifs, the what could happens, that we will reach a place of certainty or clarity. But the reality is that certainty does not exist. I talk about this idea a lot, that for so many of us, we crave clarity and we think that if we just wait or if we assess long enough, that clarity will arrive, right? That we'll reach that point of clarity and then we can chart a new course. Then we can make a decision. But in reality, we have to decide first. We have to move forward down whatever path we choose. And then we gain that clarity through our willingness to act. That can be really confronting for empathic entrepreneurs. But the reality is that we gain clarity and we gain more confidence in ourselves and our ability to trust ourselves through our willingness to act without knowing. In my experience, empathpreneurs often change course or niche down or sit in these liminal spaces in their careers or their businesses or lives, typically more often and for longer periods of time than other business owners. And I think that that's for a couple of reasons. So how do we recognize those signs that it's time to evolve, right? So first of all, you have to start to discern the difference between this inner resistance to change, which we all have, we all experience, versus this intuitive inner knowing that we're being called or propelled towards change. So some of the common signs that you might be ready for a shift, you might be ready to change or to trust that transition, is that your work or your business is starting to feel misaligned. It's draining your energy rather than giving you energy, and it feels uninspiring. It might start to feel old or stale. You might notice that you're starting to feel inspired or drawn to a new idea, a new audience to serve, or a new way of serving folks. And I think this is really important because for empathpreneurs, we are naturally intuitive, which means that we have many original ideas, that we're highly creative. And so we likely are a bit more atypical in the businesses that we launch or in the ways that we serve people because they're so unique to us. So we have to sit in that liminal space and allow those intuitive whispers and nudges to propel us, to inspire us, to call us forward. So those repeated intuitive nudges or synchronicities will oftentimes point us in a new direction, but we certainly need to make space. We need to create calm and peace and ease so that we hear those whispers when they speak and so that we can allow ourselves to act on them. And then lastly, like when we experience that growing discomfort with staying in the same place, like just that general angst, right? Or annoyance or resentment that it's time to change. That can also be a sign that you're ready for a shift. Maybe you've known that it's time to evolve for a long time now, or maybe you've been trying to make a change in your business or your career for a long time now, and you know that you want to make a change and you don't know how to do it, right? You don't know how to overcome that fear and that sense of doubt and reframe that uncertainty and actually move forward. So let's start with reframing fear. So first of all, I think many of us we don't have an empowered relationship with fear, right? We experience fear and then we allow it to make us run the other direction. Now, I think this is one of the reasons I love working with entrepreneurs in particular, because we're predispositioned to embrace risk. We're more practiced in embracing fear. And that is a muscle, right? Like that's a muscle that you can grow. So think about a practice that scares you and start embracing it. Start leaning into it and try to embrace the journey and have fun with it. For me, that's one of those recent practices has been taking an ice bath. So you'll all remember that last winter, I went cold plunging in the ocean most days throughout the whole winter. Now, we've since moved and we're no longer right across the street from the beach. So that's become a little harder to do with an infant. So for Christmas this year, my husband bought me a outdoor plunge pool, which I was like, okay, well, we'll see how this goes. And I never thought I would be one of those people to take an ice bath. Like going in the ocean feels so much easier for me than sitting in a pool in my backyard where I have to break through ice and step into it by myself with no beautiful ocean breeze, no companionship, no slow meander into the sea. Like this is all right, let's step in and do it. And I noticed that with practice and with a willingness to lean in, I have found so much joy in my daily ice bath. So we really have to lean into those things we're afraid of and view them as an opening for growth. And it's a muscle. Embrace that it's a muscle and that it's something you can strengthen with time. Additionally, when you're nervous about stepping outside of your comfort zone, it can be helpful to remind yourself that the reason it feels scary is because it's unfamiliar. It's unfamiliar because it is currently outside of your comfort zone. So by definition, it would feel uncomfortable or unfamiliar. But it is just that. It's unfamiliar. It's not because you're incapable. You are simply unpracticed. So learning how to take micro movements, micro actions forward can really support you in taking small but incremental steps forward towards taking a more drastic leap. And it can also build that confidence and that self-trust. And then finally, for empaths, we have to be mindful of our people-pleasing tendencies and our need for external validation, because that can be a really large point of fear and resistance that we need to overcome in order to embrace change. The reality is that we can often doubt or mistrust our own internal compass because of how atypical our ideas sound, how atypical our internal guidance is, and those people-pleasing tendencies, those tendencies to be similar or to go along with the status quo, right? Like our loved ones want us to be safe. They want us to be protected. So they're naturally going to voice those concerns. But once we can let go of that need for external validation or approval, or even external permission, and show up to our loved ones with certainty and excitement and joy for our ideas and inspirations, it will create that encouragement and that support that we've been seeking, not surprisingly, right? So I want to leave you all with some practices to not only navigate the emotional angst that transitions often bring up for us, but also some tactical ways in which we can make space and move forward with ease and grace. How we can really embrace that next step, even when it feels uncertain, but we know it's right. So first of all, we need to give ourselves permission to grieve the old path. We need to allow ourselves space to honor what we're leaving behind, to celebrate what we're created, to celebrate what we've created, to really honor the who that we were inside the chapter of life or the season of life that we are letting go. Once we allow ourselves that space and grace to grieve the old path, we can embrace patience to really allow the journey to unfold rather than try to force or control it. Alignment is not an instant and clear path. It's truly through our own willingness to make space that we create clarity and ease. One of the ways that we can create more space for that clarity and ease is to set some real clear boundaries so that we can protect our own energy from those naysayers who may want to project their fears onto us or try to tell us what to do because they've been doing that for a long time. Boundary setting is so crucial when you're navigating transitions. It's one of the most important ways you can protect your own energy is to be really clear around who you want to share your new idea with or who you want to entrust your intuition to. So when that next step is feeling uncertain, but you know it's right in your business or your career, here are some practices to support you in embracing change and trusting that transition. And it starts with the power of self-permission. Start checking yourself when you notice yourself sharing what you're up to or what you want to be up to with friends and family members, looking for their permission to validate your path and to validate the decision that you are resisting. Normalize the fact that you do not need to see the whole path or have the full roadmap of where you're going in order to trust and embrace and take the very next step. Because it's truly that willingness to act that you generate further clarity around the path beyond that first action. Make more space for yourself. Remove the clutter. One of my favorite definitions of clutter, the physical manifestation of chaos in your mind. So whether you need to make space in your environment or with your emotions or who you're extending your energy and your time to, it will support you in discerning those intuitive whispers and nudges. Prioritize regulating your nervous system. It's truly when we feel grounded and when we're in that easeful state that we're more inclined to be guided by our intuition and our inspiration versus held back by our fear and resistance. Similarly, stretch your comfort zone. So many of us think that our comfort zones are static, right? That they don't expand, but in reality, they are elastic. They expand or contract with our own willingness to take on actions outside of them. So lean into your edge, get more comfortable taking risks, whether it's in a plunge pool or learning a new creative hobby. Do something to stretch yourself. I hope that you found today's episode useful. If you're in a season of change or transition, know that you are in such good company. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Prosperous Empath Podcast with me, your host, Catherine Wood. Make sure you subscribe and leave a review so you don't miss an episode, and so more empathpreneurs just like you and me can find the show. You can find all the show notes and resources shared over at unbounded-potential.com. And if you're looking for more community and conversation like the ones we have here, join us in the Unbounded community at unboundedmastermind.com, a unique space for empathpreneurs committed to doing good as we grow, give and get support, and most importantly, come together.